to another edition of SKN AM. Today we're joined by Dr. Gaile Gray-Phillip for an inspiring conversation about her journey as a career woman in STEAM and education. From balancing family and professional growth to earning her PhD, Dr. Gray-Phillip's story is one of determination and lifelong learning. Stay tuned as we explore her experiences and achievements and uncover lessons worth learning. More SKN AM in a moment. Welcome to the show, Dr. Gray-Phillip. It's an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
So let's start at the very beginning. Obviously, you have a very full life in terms of your profession and also in terms of family. But I want to go back to the beginning and how you were as a child, whether you were naturally curious about how things worked, about science, about numbers.
I grew up in a home where my mother was a secondary school teacher and my father was a police officer. So education in my home was key, was important. My mother was always like preparing for classes, and school work was important for us. So I was always reading, always doing work around the dining table. My aunts, but my mother has two sisters and they were also teachers. You know, my best friend's mother was a teacher. So my community growing up, we were all into. But looking back at it, I realized the importance of education in our household. We didn't feel pressured, but it was just a way of life for us.
So looking at those early influences then, all right, so you grew up in a household where education was definitely something that the value of it was instilled in you from a very young age. When did your love of science, numbers, mathematics, when did that
come about? I think I was as placed in it. You know, I was born and raised in Jamaica.
Yes.
Right. So in high school, after third form, you are placed in sciences or technical or commercial or the arts, right? Depending on how you performed in your previous years in school. So I was placed in the sciences after third form. So I did, coming up in school, growing up, I did pretty well. I didn't go to grade 1 and I didn't go to grade 5. So in primary school, no, I skipped grade 1 and I skipped grade 5. You know, in Jamaica, you have to do a common entrance exam to get into high school. So, of course, I passed the common entrance and went into high school. Those who did not pass would go to a secondary school to learn like a trade or stuff like that. So I did pretty well in class. When I got to first form, I don't know, maybe I thought that I had arrived. But after that first term in first form and my report came, I was 21st. I thought maybe there was a mistake. The 2 should not have been there or the 1 should not have been there. I don't know. But that was a shock to me. And from then it was first, second, or third throughout the rest of first form, second form, third form. When you got to fourth form, they didn't place you anymore. Because there were just 2 subjects that were different. So in fourth form, in 4 science and 5 science, I had to do mathematics, of course. I had to do physics, chemistry, and biology. And we also did additional mathematics, you know, additional mathematics. So, right. So that's between the O level and the A level. So as a fourth former, fifth former, we did additional mathematics. So it's not as if I chose it. I think they saw the ability, and so I was placed in the sciences. And I contribute my mathematics background to my teachers. I had a very good teacher in first, second, and third form, the same teacher for mathematics, and she really did, I must say, lay a foundation for us. And I remember in high school, I had a great chemistry teacher. I saw that he really dedicated his time to us. And so I felt as if I could not disappoint him. So I had to dedicate my time also to chemistry, because I didn't want Mr. Fulston to be disappointed in me. Yes. So that is, yes. I believe my teachers are the ones really who got me into sciences and liking the sciences.
Well, I have to tell you, you mentioned a female teacher when you were in first form, if I heard you correctly. You were actually one of two female math teachers that I had after primary school. When we met, it was, I think, in 1998
Okay.
to 1999, back when I was in sixth form.
Right, safe breed.
And I think that you were the second female math teacher that I had. And the experiences that you had with your chemistry teacher, I also had with you. So did not,
Right,
did not disappoint me.
Yeah, and I must say that teaching is something I didn't want to do.
Really?
Right, teaching, I didn't want to be. I never dreamed that I'd be a teacher. I came to St. Kitts after getting married to a Kittitian and moving here, and out of university, looking someplace where do I want to work with a degree in math. What am I going to do? I had interest in actuarial science, so you know what that is. Calculating risk and premiums and that kind of thing. I worked with the Life of Jamaica in the actuarial department during summers and Christmas while at university. So I had interest in that. But when I came here, didn't see how that was going to happen here. And one of my friends from campus said to me, why not teach? Because it's a good way to meet people, get to know the culture, and then you can also look around to see where you would like to work. And so I applied to teach. I got a job teaching mathematics and physics, and also taught IT at Sunny Point High at the time. And I could not, I had a fifth form. I couldn't leave in between that year because I had a fifth form preparing for exams. At the end of the year, I had fourth formers going into fifth form. I had to see them through. And so that's how that's how it went. And it has been 30 plus years still in education.
It's interesting. What I want to get to is the fact that when you moved to St. Kitts, there had to be some sort of adjustment in terms of what you considered to be your ultimate career goal. And I find that to be a very fascinating discussion because obviously you came from Jamaica, it's a little more advanced than a 68 square mile island. So there had to be some adjustment. I'm glad that you fell in love with teaching. I want to know a little bit more about how the adjustment impacted you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I thought I wanted to do doctoral science. Some of my friends went on to do doctoral science from that maths group. I applied when I came to an insurance company, hoping, I'll do actuarial science, but did not get the job. And I was disappointed, I was disappointed. But that didn't work out. And sometimes things happen in life that is a disappointment at one time, but it really worked out for the best, afterwards. And I do recall growing up, my mother was talking to a teacher about my sister. She wasn't doing well in math. And the teacher was comparing myself and my sister. And my mother said to the teacher, they are two different persons, right? And if my sister wants to be a garbage collector, let her be a garbage collector, unless I'm pleased if she's the best garbage collector, right? As long as she's the best at whatever she decides to do. So that always sticks, with me. Whatever I'm doing, I just try to do it at the best of my ability. I didn't know anything about teaching, but I drew on that maths teacher from high school and that chemistry teacher and their style. I drew on that in my practice.
I can understand exactly what you mean. I have yet to talk to anybody who said that they got into teaching and it was what they wanted to do. I think we kind of fall into the profession, but we then fall in love with
In
the
love.
profession.
Right, right,
So
right.
there are those moments when, like being a student in your class, those eureka moments happen. And I felt, okay, this is making sense. I think that you and I could relate to that happening when we are leading a classroom as well.
Yeah.
And we say, I finally get it. This is where it's
Yeah.
fitting. It
This,
works
yeah.
for me.
And I like when, I mean, you don't get a lot of pay when you're as a teacher, but I like to be someplace and somebody, even if I don't remember my name, they say, teacher, how are you? You're like, oh,
Let's
know,
ask you.
I taught them 20, 30 years ago, and, they do remember. So that makes a day when,
Yeah,
when that
honestly.
happens. And when you go someplace and see them or you hear about their accomplishments. Yeah, that's that.
I want to ask you, because we're gonna trade notes here for a second. You taught in Sandy Point High. You ended up teaching at the local sixth form college as well. And now you are in another area of education that's even higher than that. So when you drive around, because I've had the experience, I worked in the country as well. And there was a certain point in time when I used to joke with my family members. I said, whenever I drive around the island, it doesn't matter where I'm hearing teacher.
Yes.
It's the weirdest experience for me
Yes,
because I'm like, I'm just passing through and I'm hearing
right.
that.
Sandy Point, St. Paul's, every now and then. They right, you every know, right. And I'm now interacting when I was at the college with children of students that I taught.
Interesting. How's that experience?
Like if we're all right.
Do you tell on their parents? Do you tell on their parents?
No. But sometimes you don't really know until after, or it's your last name is whatever, and you're from and it's that's my mother or that's my father. Like, oh my,
Yeah, that happens. After a while, after a while, it'll definitely happen. Right. So we've touched a little bit on your career. We've touched a little bit on your adjusting to life in St. Kitts and Nevis as well. I just have to say, though, it's very interesting. I find that there are parallels between us that I didn't even know, and I've known you for a very long time. I wasn't aware that you taught information technology either.
Yeah, I taught IT at first form, second form level.
What was that like?
I interestingly, when I was at university, as I tell you, I had a great chemistry teacher. I was very good at chemistry, and the lecturers suggested that I specialize in chemistry. And I was thinking, oh, what am I going to be? In a lab, in white coat all this time? That's not what I saw myself doing. So I, when math, it was easy for me. I found math very easy. I also did physics. And I picked up some information technology along the way, So, yeah, so that was my field. So that was just first and second form I did that for, and that was exciting. But those were the days of floppy disk.
Believe it or not, I know what they are.
Those were those days, but I still have a knack for IT. I'm still interested in what's happening, and yeah, my colleagues at work sometimes call on me to do certain things. When it comes on to IT, I can manipulate this, I can do that. Yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
So once you've learned it, you never really forget it.
Right. And I try to keep abreast of what's happening.
I'll let you more into the core.
Yeah, I try to do that. Yeah.
It's interesting.
And
sorry.
Yeah, I have a brother in Jamaica who owns a company with IT.
Really?
Right, information system. So through him sometimes, he does some certifications. Some time ago I went to Jamaica and he just completed certificate in ethical hacking.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, so what's that? And yeah, so I try to keep up to date with some of, at least to be able to manage myself.
All right, well,
I'm not lost in the world.
You don't know this. I keep getting this insight from you, and I say, you know what, this is the light bulb going off in my head, because you taught me mechanics when I was at the college. And when I was pursuing my undergrad, I had to select an elective in my first year, and I chose mechanics. And something that you said actually resonated with me, because you said, when it came to your interest in sciences, you thought, I don't want to be wearing a white coat in
Right.
lab all day. And to be honest with you, I kind of ran from mechanics because in terms of the number of hours a week that we had to be in the site, the other courses were like 3 and 4 hours.
Right. Yeah.
That had 2 lab hours. That's 5 hours a week. And you're standing there and the experiments were nice. They were
Yeah.
great. But no, I ran.
Right. Right. Because I think maybe I didn't have good guidance when I was in university, but doing the chemistry and the physics, as I said, the labs. And I would be in the lab and writing up lab. And when I look outside, I see persons going to watch football and going here. And I'm like, I didn't come to university to just sit down in the lab. Let me get something easier. So I had to cut more math.
Hey, you're scarring people right now saying easier because there's
Yeah.
okay, as teachers, former teacher, all right, who taught math for almost 20 years. There is math anxiety. Math anxiety is real here in the island, and I don't know if it's just something that's imagined for a lot of people, because I think that when it comes to our experiences with it, yes, I'm certain we found certain things challenging, but we also loved the challenge and welcomed the challenge, and then eventually overcame those challenges. So is math anxiety, in your opinion and in your experience, is that a real thing? And what can people do to overcome it?
Yeah, I think it is. And sometimes it's what people tell them, what they've heard. That math's hard. Oh, you did math's hard. So you think that it is, but there's nothing nicer than having a maths problem to work out, and then at the end of the day you get the answer. There's nothing beats that. University, you have this problem to work out, and yeah, you get the answer in the end. When university, you used to have questions that say, prove that the answer is whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's a whole other level.
Right.
Because that's when they give you the answer, and you have to figure out how you
this is that and that and that.
That's another level.
Right.
Think of the high school level, and even the primary school level. There are things that, put it this way, the fascinating part of it is that you could arrive at an answer, or the answer per se, without going through the same route or using the same method.
Right.
And that's what I liked to engage people's minds so that they become aware of, what those connections are, and that they can do it in multiple ways. And that gives them tools for life. If you ask me, well, mathematics is a real subject. That's how I see it.
Right.
That's because it applies. And that's what teachers used to say. We used to say that all the time, didn't we, Doc?
Yeah.
We said, it's a practical subject. We want to use this. I remember once I was about to ask you.
Going to use this, yeah. But a lot of it is a critical thinking also. I find the students, they get the maths problem and they see some numbers in it. They just want to know whether I must add the numbers, multiply the numbers, what must I do with the numbers?
Yeah.
They don't really read the question to work out what they need to do with the numbers. They just, when I get a question like this, what must I do? They don't read the question to find out what is it really asking, and critically analyze what the question is asking, and therefore I need to do this before I do that, and work out the steps along the way.
Well, now you're making me think, because I have to ask you, I am a self-proclaimed introvert, might be a little bit of an ambivert, but I'm wondering whether my interest in math made me that way, or whether it's because I was that way, which is why I had an affinity towards math and science. What was your experience like? Are you an introvert? Are you an ambivert? What are you?
I think so.
Do you think introverts have a natural inclination towards mathematics?
I don't know. I'll have to do some more research on that, but I don't know. But interesting. That's interesting.
Because I was listening to you and I said, there's some similarities there, so perhaps that's it. Because I don't know of many people who would love to sit for hours and work on mathematics problems.
Yeah.
I think what I found, and you would help me with this, because of course your thesis, which we'll get to in a little bit, talks about the support that online learners need when they're pursuing further studies, etc. But I think that there's a certain disposition that one must have in order to succeed academically. And I think that to a large extent there might be representative of the way that we've dealt with failures in the past, that might determine how we deal with additional challenges and whether we want to pursue them. So with that in mind, I do want to ask you, What motivated you to go back to school? And congratulations, by the way, Dr.
Yeah,
Gray.
thanks. Well, let me tell you, even when I didn't get into insurance as I hoped, to be an actuary, you have to do as a set of exams, right? And I didn't give up. The St. Kitts did not have a center for the exam, so I found out how to get a center here, and I created a center here and sat the first level of the exam here.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
But then life happens. You have children and family and work and whatever. So I did not continue that. I thought, let me develop. As in education, I found being in education helped to support my kids. I knew what was happening in education. I knew what was happening with CXC and, all of that. So I could help better prepare them. Right? So I after a while, it became them and less of me. Right? So I did that first level, but did not go any further. I wanted to do a master's, of course. I found that whenever I went back to Jamaica, and went to visit my friends, I went to visit them on campus because they were doing their masters. They were doing postgraduate studies. I was married with children. Right? And I expressed that concern to my mother. And she said, don't worry about it. You can continue your studies eventually. Now is the time for the kids. You can continue your studies eventually. By the time your friends get around to having kids, they will be too old to run after them. So I have friends who have had a PhD how many years ago, and they're still picking up children from high school. I can't tell when last I did that. I can't tell when last I did that. So when I went to the college, Dr. Ross was the principal or president at the time. And of course, I expressed my interest in masters, and he suggested an MPhil because he said that leads you better into a PhD. So I was looking. No, this was 1990. How many years ago, right? There were not many online distance programs that I was satisfied with, accreditation and all of that. So, but eventually, it was my husband who found a master's program for me, a Master of Research. So it's a MRES. So it's a Master of Research, and I specialize in educational and social research, and it was with the University of London through their external program. Now, what I liked about that is that it was via distance. We had an online platform. We had coursework to do each week and assignments to do, but your exam was 100%. So exam was face-to-face exam. I had to go to the university center whenever I had exams, and it was 100%. So that is my work and not somebody else doing it for me. So I liked that. So I did that program, and that program, I think that helped to pivot me. With that master's in research, a group of us, some couple years after that, got together, wrote a proposal to be a part of a worldwide study on alcohol consumption and alcohol policies. So it was Dr. Sharon Halliday, Mrs. Karima Byron Keynes, and a couple others. And we got the grant funding, and I was a principal investigator for that with my background in research. So I oversaw the conduct of that survey in St. Kitts and in Nevis. And because of that, every year it was a worldwide study, and we would need to report on our part of the work. So that I traveled to Australia, I traveled to New Zealand, I traveled to South Korea, I've traveled to Italy, I've traveled to Scotland. Name it.
You're hitting the bucket list. Keep going.
Because of that research.
Great.
Right? And so that led me into that. Then, of course, I also did a certificate in studying the to analyze what research analysis for drug consumptions and for the Caribbean and Latin America and stuff like that. So I did that, and out of that, out of the alcohol consumption, I've published. So I published 9 articles so far. 2 were myself as the main author, and 7 myself as contributing author. So out of that master's in research, that led me to that. So the next step was the PhD, of course. And I started a doctorate in education, EdD, with the University of the UK while my kids were in high school. And I decided that I found I remember one time trying to find $50,000 to pay for the tuition. I was like, why am I forcing myself to do this? And my kids are getting ready to go off to university. I need the monies for that, So I again put myself on the back burner and focus on, getting funds for them to go off to university. So then after they left, I was able to now look back at me.
It's focused on you.
Right. And got into the PhD in education with Jamaica Mona campus. What I liked about that program is that every summer you would travel to Jamaica for, classes and seminars and, stuff like that. So it gave you that in-person part, of it. So I like that. So yeah.
You think you also like going back home, getting reconnected with your roots as well?
Well, yes, of course. That's part of it. That's part of it, to eat some of mommy food. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. And it's just, down the road. It's not to the UK or anything. And the cost was less expensive than the UK. And I'm sure I'm getting a good degree, so that was important to me.
And that's it. And I was actually about to help you make that point, or at least ask you about that, because
the Lord make it easy.
No, really.
They did not. They did not.
Tell me about that.
I remember at one of the seminars they said that how they put it, like, we are the gatekeepers and only certain people will let in here. Like that kind of a thing.
I remember.
That kind of
a lot as well.
Yeah. So you have to be you have to
you got to know your stuff.
You have to know your stuff, and you have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
You have to prove yourself worthy.
Wow. That's a lot of pressure.
Prove yourself worthy. Oh my Lord. Yes.
There was a colleague of mine who actually encountered a lecturer that I had back when I was in school. And I told him, the lecturer said something very similar to what you said. And he said, you know what, I just could not feel him. I just did not like him because of the grades, right? But actually, you know what, he was fine. He was actually one of my better ones. So it depends on your mindset as well. But I think that when you know that you're being challenged, if you like a challenge and you see the value in it, then you'd work even harder.
Even harder. Right. Yeah.
So as a mother, as a working professional, as a wife, you were able to do this. Let's talk a little bit about the work-life balance. What was that like?
I don't know how I did it. Because in all of that, I was also involved with CXC. So I sat on the panel for math, the CAPE, for reviewing the CAPE syllabus. And I think about 3 or so years ago, I sat on the panel. I chaired the panel that reviewed integrated math syllabus. And I even served CXC at one time as assistant chief in statistical analysis and all of that. So I did all of that. And I worked part-time with the University of the West Indies for over 20 years. I taught online for the university.
So you made it a habit. So you don't know how you did it.
Right. So I have a home office.
Without less.
And work from there. And as I tell you, I grew up in a house where books were all over the place, and reading and studying was the norm. So I created that same environment, at home, not under any pressure, but you have to foster that, curiosity with the kids. And learning was not just limited to just school or when you're sitting around the dining table to do work, but you're driving along the road and there is something there that you can, make a point about. I remember one morning we're going, dropping the kids to school, and I think we were by like a stop sign, and there was a young man walking, like going to work, but his pants all the way down, and my husband said to the boys, look at him, what do you think? And it was like, oh, his pants is down, and he was like, yes, and um, I don't expect that of you. These are primary school boys, going to work, and you when he was done, you thought they were the ones walking on the road, you know. So that is what I expect of you, and it's a little teaching points as you go along the road,
Yeah.
with them.
Well, that's great. I I want to get into, if you can share a little bit about your thesis. Tell us what it was about and perhaps even share some of the findings.
Okay. All right. So I looked at online distance students because I work with the University of the West Indies Global Campus, and I looked at the social support that these students have. I look at their technology. I call it technology contingency readiness. That is, what happens if electricity goes? What do you have in place? What happens if internet goes? What do you have in place? And I look at their expectations of flexibility and how these relate to their commitment to learning. And I defined commitment as a purpose driven intention to learn the concepts, not just to complete the course, but a purpose driven intention to learn the concepts that are there. And that came out of my experience as a distance learner in the master's program, and also the experience of myself as a online instructor, because I coordinated a course for UE for the distance program, and the course would have roughly 300 students every semester. And the excuses I received all the time, I'm like, these students don't have no support. You know, we have a quiz and you're coming to tell me that you don't have any internet, can't use the phone as a hotspot. Little excuses that I thought that as adults, um, some of them, just to me, they could do better. So I wanted to know exactly what's happening, with them and their commitment to learning. I also found that there are some persons who are not so, at some employers, not so trusting of the online, degrees. And you think that the students don't necessarily do the work themselves. So I wanted to know the students' commitment to learning the concepts. So I developed an instrument for that and several other instruments. And I started off as a background in math. So I started off as a quantitative study because I wanted to use my SPSS and analyze the data and do all kind of things. But in throughout the journey and through the graduate seminars, I changed to a mixed method study. So although I did the quantitative part, I also did a qualitative part, and then I did a integration of both. Right? So it was a 330 something pages document.
In a moment.
And what I found interesting was that there are some students who classify themselves as a child in the household. So they're living with their mother and father or a parent, and they are early 20s, and they're doing their degree online. So they classify themselves as a child. So you'd imagine that, or you would assume that the parent is supporting them, along the way. Don't bother wash the dishes, I'll do it for you because you have your assignment and stuff to do. But in interviewing some of them, they were basically the breadwinner because they were taking care of a parent. Um, parent is ill, not working, so they are the one who's working, coming back home to look after. So a lot of times you really need to know the family dynamics and the learning environment that they create for themselves. Because they're studying online, they have to create a learning environment. They're not going to a classroom.
That's interesting, because I think that I would have thought that even though it's online, there is that uniformity. But what you're saying to me now actually makes a lot of sense.
Right, because some you study from your bed, some go to a cafe. You have to create that environment and the support. Indicate to persons at your home that have an assignment to do, and indicate how they can support you in getting it done. So if the little ones that you have at home, mommy have an assignment, what can I, they are invested in it also.
Great.
Yeah.
So did you find anything that surprised you, or did you have any preconceived notions going into that?
Yeah, well, the one of the things I was surprised about, some students, the workplace don't know that you're pursuing studies.
Why did that surprise you?
Yeah, what? But you can get support from your workplace. But some persons said they don't want persons at the workplace to know that they are doing, that surprised me, that they are doing studies. They don't want them to think that they are doing them any favors in giving them time off to study or anything like that. So that surprised me, because I thought you'd want your workplace, your supervisors, whoever, to know, to provide whatever support. So that surprised me.
I guess it's an air of privacy, because I suppose I would be the same way if I were doing that. I tend to be very private, so yeah, I probably wouldn't say at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's a very interesting study. I can see how it would benefit you in your day-to-day in your career as well. And that body of research definitely will help.
Yes, and it showed that the younger students, those in their 20s to 24, needed more support. Those in their 30s and 40s, they're already working and they really have a mission when they're doing their, doing this degree. They're looking forward to promotion, more money. The younger ones, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
They, I found, needed more support and guidance. And I also found that, there is need for the students to demonstrate their learning, not just through tests, and stuff like that. Because you can just study and squat for a test, but to find other ways of assessing that will demonstrate their learning and let them, practice what they have learned. A lot of them spoke about working with teams, learning about, how to work on teams at work, the experience at university with online helped them to understand people better and tolerate versus and able to, work better with teams at work.
Okay, that's great. That's something that I would never consider, but I guess, yes, now that you've mentioned it, we take a lot of things for granted, it seems, when we are in the workplace, and then we sort of expect young people to just grow into it.
Right.
But your body of research simply suggests to me that there are things that we need to be mindful of as well, even as employers, as rightly said, to lend support.
To lend support, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'm fascinated. You're inspiring me again to go back to the classroom, believe it or not. There's a joke around here that I used to tell people, my family in particular, that I am a perpetual student. So I might be following in your footsteps again in the not too distant.
I'm already doing a course.
Really?
Yeah, I'm doing a leadership course right now. I started in February and it should end at the end of June.
Wow.
So how many months? That 4 months or whatever course? Yeah. So I'm always looking for opportunities to better equip myself, and not necessarily. There are times when what you're doing doesn't really relate to to your work right now, but it will open opportunities later. But I'm in leadership, of course, so I saw it as being beneficial to learn, even to learn something.
There is, and I'm glad that you're here, because there is this thing that I want to ask you about now. sadly forgot the name of the person that I can attribute it to, but I was watching a podcast not too long ago, and the guest was effectively saying that once we get to the age of 50, professionally, we are in that zone now where it's beneficial for us to teach from our experiences as opposed to simply just working at a job and doing. Now it's that time to impart what you've learned to other people, the
others.
younger generation, and that's really when it starts to click for the over 50 crowd. Now that I'm hearing that you are participating in that leadership course, not only do I want to ask you if there are things that you were going over in terms of content that effectively say to you, well, I've been doing this, so this is validation for me because I know this already. But are there also things that are surprising you about leadership?
Yeah, as I said, some of the things you already know from experience, but it opens your eyes. Like one of the classes we're talking about, um, you get to you sometimes something happens and persons react. Some and you are kind of like, why did they react that way? But then you have to, as a leader, realize that everybody comes with their own different experiences and expectations and whatever, and the way they react don't necessarily reflect on you as you the leader, right? It maybe them and something that they experienced before you, they expected, so don't take it personally sometimes with how they react to some changes.
That makes sense. But in the moment, I imagine it's a hard lesson.
Yes.
Not always easy to
Yes,
find.
so don't, yeah.
But
And I am, one of the things I've highlighted, or, coming out of this course is create leaders. So why as a leader, try to create leaders. You're not going to be there all the time, so what happens after you? So share what's happening with the team, give others the opportunity to lead, and I also, from this course, don't just give instructions, tell them what the intention is, get their buy-in, and don't just say they move that plant to there, so like, why, tell them what the intent is, what the plan is, and this is how we're going to go about it. We're going to move the plant over there, and
that's fascinating for me because I think that for those of us who grew up in a different generation, perhaps in different households, different parenting styles, fortunately, I didn't grow up that way, but I know that other people in my family have. Asking questions was not something that was encouraged at all.
Right.
It's like, if I give you this instruction, I expect you to do no questions asked.
Right.
In the classroom, I realized that that shift needed to happen. So I'm glad that you mentioned that as well, because it's even applicable in the workplace. You expect people to do things, but I find myself that I've always defaulted to why. Even if I'm not given an explanation, I'm still looking at why. And there are times, I suppose, that it might lead me into trouble because there's no answer. That seems to satisfy me. And then I guess I would default to something that you said about leadership. It's not only the leadership course that could teach you how to deal with your subordinates, but perhaps sometimes it can even teach you how to deal with your superiors.
Yeah.
Interesting concept. Well, I'm learning a lot from you, and I'm grateful because I feel like I'm sitting in your classroom yet again. So that's great. One of the things that I want to talk with you about is, of course, women in STEAM, women in STEM. In case you didn't notice, she's a woman.
Okay.
Yes, we know that, right? And pursuing what would tend to be, at least at the time when you were in it and introduced to it, a male-dominated field. So was there any pressure? Did you experience any pressure on you to shine just because you felt that it was a male-dominated field? Did you even feel that it was a male-dominated field? Let's start there.
I didn't really feel that, but on reflection, I know when I got to final year university, it was more males in my math program than females. But I didn't feel any pressure. Yeah.
So then, well, that's a very good thing because I think that, put it to you this way, and I don't know if it comes from the experience, you're a teacher, so you know that. when you're in the classroom, you tend to see individuals, you don't see gender. But I suppose when you're going through the program or you're hearing external voices saying to you, you know, this is a male-dominated field and we need to get more women involved and so on, then perhaps is when you start to realize maybe I was a little bit of a trailblazer. I didn't even know that I was going to be that, you know? So like I said to you before, you were one of 2 female math teachers that I had. And that moment stood out for me when you went to the classroom. And I harken back to it quite a bit because up until that point in time, absolutely right. You bet your life going through high school, that's 9 out of 10 times. If you had a female math teacher, that would be like something relatively unheard of, because I don't want to say it was something that women shied away from. I don't think that's what it was at all, but it was just something that I guess we just expected males to be dominating it. And then you said computer science as well. I mean, I remember in some of the classes that I was in, you're absolutely right, more males again. You know, so it's a thing that seems to attract more males than females. Some might argue perhaps doors are shut on the females who are willing to enter it. But okay, looking at the situation now, looking at the landscape now, is that something that you think perhaps the younger generation would actually directly have to confront, that gender issue in STEAM, or is there a non-issue to your?
I don't think it's an issue, at least, well, not here, not what I'm seeing. I think of the robotics. I don't know much about it, but that comes to mind. I see a lot of females involved in that. You know, the little I see of it on social media or wherever. So a lot of our persons in the sciences at CFB, I'm sure quite a number of females, you know, quite a number of them in medicine, gone on to the medicine. So I don't think it has an issue, no, at least not here.
Okay, when we have this conversation again, I will let you know whether or not a subsequent guest agrees with you.
Okay.
Because I've had that conversation, and perhaps it's not necessarily in STEAM, but it is definitely prevalent in certain other fields. So I'm glad to hear that in this field, you've not encountered it, you've not been aware of it, and you've shone, just like anybody else should. And I guess to that point, perhaps you might not even notice it, but I would dare say you might be a role model to some other young people because, again, like you, women in the classroom teaching sciences or math was something that was novel to me at about 17 years old. So seeing that, you've sort of normalized that. So if it's become more normal, that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I've kept in touch with some students who I taught at CFB and at Sandy Point High, although some of them are overseas, if a week don't pass and they're checking up on me, how are you doing? You know, what's happening? What are you up to now? You know, how is the thesis going? And, motivating me when I'm ready to give up. And I said, no man, I'm going to check up on you next week and you better tell me that you finished the chapter. And those are the students, my students pushing me, telling me, I have to finish it,
I think in a way that says that you've paid it forward, because once upon a time you were the motivator.
Yeah.
Turned around.
So they're the ones giving me deadline. Chapter 3 finish yet? You see that? Next week I'm gonna call and they will yeah. So some students,
Those are the most fulfilling moments for me when you get those experiences. So as we
I have a student in Canada is married to she's PhD, he's also PhD, and he is a methodologist. So when I wrote that chapter, my supervisor told me I should get somebody who is into stats and stuff to read it for me. And so I was telling my past student, and she said, oh, my husband couldn't do that. So send him the chapter. And I did, and he read it over and everything and sent it back. So they were my motivation.
Obviously, and it's great to know that you've formed that relationship that endures even beyond the classroom. Because you really never know. You never know who's going to sit in your classroom, who's going to be in your workplace. You never know where it's going to go. But if you could shed a little bit of light and sunshine, It's great. To me, Dr. Gray-Phillip, it speaks to that sense of community that sometimes I feel that is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Tend to be
Yeah.
tend to feel isolated here, but then you realize that there are people who actually genuinely want good for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to plant that seed, of which you have as a teacher as well.
Yeah. And I couldn't disappoint them. Although I taught them 20-something years ago, they're pushing me. I couldn't tell them I decided to drop out. I couldn't tell them that. So I had to go through.
It's interesting because I think that it speaks to your tenacity as well, because you started and obviously there were challenges. You said, okay, there might be challenges that would dictate that you can't continue at this time. You prioritized your family, great thing to do. And then you effectively got back on the saddle and you said, this is time to prioritize yourself. And you stuck to it. So I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
So the last thing I have to ask you is, with all of the achievements, which might not even seem like achievements, you might be another day in the life of Gray-Phillip, right? With all of those achievements, what's next for you?
Oh, what's next? When I called my mother, when I got the letter of completion to say, the degree has been awarded, I called my mother. She said, so what's next? I'm like, huh? That was her question. What's next? Right. So I'm sure. Of course, I have to publish, and there are several articles I get out of my thesis. So that's what I'm going to focus on next. Getting those publications out there. I am in a new role, relatively new, for about a year now. I'm Deputy Director acting for the Global Campus site. So I have oversight of all the different centers, all different sites in 16 countries. So I am ensuring that I focus on and preparing myself to be able to, manage all of that, deal with all of these people in all these different countries and their different personalities. But yeah, and these different short professional development courses. I tell you, I'm doing a leadership course now. I'm sure something else will come up. I always wanted to learn Python. So maybe I'll do that. I was talking to somebody the other day and said I need to do something relaxing. I need to go learn chess. So I have those little things on my list. I need to go learn how to play chess. I need to explore Python a little bit, and yeah, I have a little list there of things I want to explore.
Okay, great. It's going to keep your mind active.
Yes. When my mother retired, she did a writing course, writing for publication course. And she wrote a book on gardening passions, I think it's called, and all the photos in it she took and everything, and she published it. She had it on Amazon. She had her web page and all that. That's after she retired.
You've got to tell me what your mother's name is.
So I don't know, that's the home I'm from, right? So yeah, so there's always something to learn and to do,
Great.
It's a norm for us.
Great. Well, I want to thank you. I know that we've talked about a whole range of topics today, but I've gotten insight into who you are and a little bit more of who you are, naturally, and the importance of education. If I have to take away one lesson from you, it would be that I should appreciate people's differences and not apply, one size fits all approach to everyone.
Right.
So that's one of the lessons. There are many in this short.
The foundation is very important. Yeah, for education, that foundation is very important. So even at 3 years old, they can start. When I was in 6th form, my youngest brother was in grade 6, and in 6th form doing math. I'm sure you remember things like integration and differentiation and all those things. And I taught him integration and differentiation, and he understood those concepts. And we're getting them correct. And some of them in my class, they weren't getting it correct, and he was in grade 6 in primary school.
Wait, so that means that you subscribe to the belief that you could teach anyone anything at any time?
Well, I suppose I do. Yes, yes. And I didn't realize I was teaching from then. No, I know. I'm now realizing that.
Love practice.
Side. Yes, and he went on to do a degree in math and physics. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
I wouldn't ask where he's going to use them because obviously it's
Well, that's his own. That's the one with the
with
own
the
computer
okay, great.
company, right? Yeah, yeah.
They're applicable. Yeah, they're applicable.
Mhm,
So you come from that sort of family where you're always using your brain, and it's good to see what you do with it. So I guarantee you're going to be looking to see what you do next.
Next.
So stay close to us, please, because we'd love to share more of your story with your audience. Dr. Gray-Phillip, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation. And it was a nice discussion.
Definitely. So.
Yeah, you had me reflecting on all those times. Thought about it a while.
Definitely so. Well, it's a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Help us grow the SKN community. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more exclusive content now. Thank you for joining me for this edition of SKN. I'm Jimmy Morris. Have a great rest of the day and see you next time.